First, I will talk about documentations. In the pharmaceutical industry, documentation is a methodology paramount to SAS programming. And this methodology is widely adopted in other fields such as telecom, etc. A good program would contain program headers, footnotes, and comments to include information about the author, purpose of the program, and complex logic for a certain block of code, etc. Let's take a look at an example here. This is a sample code for a program header. In the program header, it normally contains a block for project-related information. Okay, for example, client name, protocol name, the purpose of the program, okay, these type of information, location of the program, input, output, etc. And a block for developer's name and information, such as developer name, ID, date, etc. In this example, it is combined in the first block for both project-related and developer information. It can also include a block that contains all the macros or external files that are used in this program. So in this example, it contains the inputs, which is the raw data, and the outputs that this program is supposed to create. It should also include a section for modification history as well, to document the modification date and content for the future use, which you may find here. This is the modification history section. It would be very clear to anyone outside of your team to know what this program is about, then who to contact with in case of errors. In this example, you know that the author is this one and this one. If you encounter an issue, you might contact them. So for title and footnote, a quick example for them can be seen in the following code. In a proc print step, it's always good to include the title or footnote to well describe what is printed to the output window. So if you just run the code, you see that there's no title footnote. Sometimes you don't know what's happening in the results. Now use title and footnote statement to perform this task, to include a title and a footnote for your printed result. Now you see the comparison. Now I have a title and a footnote. It says a printout sashelp.cars dataset. So this makes it clear that the following table is from this dataset. And in the footnote, I have something saying output limits to 10 records. See, we have only 10 records. These are very informative, and for people who just run the code and doesn't really need to open the dataset, by just looking at your printout layout, he should be able to see what is going on here. After the proc print block, we use an empty statement to initiate two blank values for the title and footnotes, so that you won't get the same title and footnote in every output result. So if you don't use this in the next printout result, you still get the same title and footnote. SAS would not know. So now if I run the two statements and I run the code again, you see that there's nothing here. The quotation mark is not necessary. So if you run this part, run it again, you see that there's no title and footnotes anymore. Let's go back to the slide. Prior to programming in SAS, it can be useful to set up a program containing comments explaining the key steps that need to be taken, can then be used to produce SAS code, and will provide useful documentation for the purpose of the program if the program is taken on by someone else. Okay, so here's another example for the comments. These lines of code, okay, so these lines of code are extracted from a program that produces an output for adverse event in a clinical trial. In each block, we have a comment to communicate clearly the purpose of the following codes. For example, the comment here saying, construct an AE report with 1 incidence overall and by treatment group with p-value calculated from Fisher's exact, including blah blah blah. And this comment is for the description of the purpose of the following codes. This makes it clear as a reference that is easy to follow. I have another comment here for the following block saying construct a macro variable to show the number of AE events in the first row. Okay, so this makes it very clear. Comments can be added before you write the program, especially when you are planning the codes or during the development to explain the purpose of the codes. It is highly recommended to place the comment before your code, just like what I'm doing here. Okay, place the comment before the code and make it a convention so that everybody knows the meaning of your comment. Although it takes more time to include the comments, it really pays off because most programs are not one-time use. These comments are also very useful when doing the maintenance in the future. You will easily forget the purpose of a certain block, especially when the codes are complex. So if I take these comments out after a month, you come back and look at the code, you would not be able to know what these codes are. These are simple codes, especially when you have a complex derivation. You would just easily forget. So all macros should be developed with associated documentation, including concise comments within the macro program as well, because macros are not so easy to debug and not easy to read either. Same for SQL. When writing complex SQL statements where multiple steps are performed in a single line of code, or where multiple tables are joined together, this is especially important. This will help others understand what is being accomplished in case future modification is necessary. So in general, make sure you have enough comments unless the code is very straightforward. Also keep in mind that it is not helpful to overload the program with comments. Use it in a wise way. I have another example here just to give you some tips of how to use comments. Okay, SAS allows 3 types of comments. This is the first type. It comes with the pair. And this is another type that starts with the star sign, or this type, which is used in macro facility. However, we have a preference on each type. So where practical, either the second type or the third type should be used in preference to the first type, which should rather be reserved for commenting out large section of code during program testing and revision. Okay, so with this type, you can easily just comment out a large block of code. Say if I want to comment the entire block out, you see how easy I can perform this task. For calls to macros, it can be commented out by placing a star sign after the percentage in the invocation and a semicolon after the closing parenthesis. For example, this one. This macro would not be executed because I commented out